Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television where you, the MSME, get center stage. This is ETNA's special daily initiative to give MSMEs and entrepreneurs the opportunity to be front and center on every industry and area that matters to you. Tonight on the show, an influencer, a conversation with CalorX School, and later a conversation on the interior decor space. That's on our leader focus segment tonight. No space is perhaps changing as fast and is having as much of an impact as the education space in India. My colleague Pooja Jain caught up with Manjula Pooja Shroff of CalorX School to talk education, the opportunities that MSME should tap in the space, and tips for our viewers. Take a look.
It's no secret that there's a huge gap between supply and demand when it comes to providing quality education in this country. How is CalorX attempting to bridge the gap?
I agree. There is a demand-supply position in India today. That's because of two counts. One is lack of access and the other is lack of quality itself. In CalorX, we're doing a small bit. Over the past 2 decades, we've set up about 40 institutions to deal with the access problem. On the quality, it's slightly more serious because quality is, because of the lack of standards of quality in education. Quality is in people's heads. It's whoever defines quality loosely. So we've tried to do away with that. We have at CalorX clear-cut quality parameters. These parameters are visible throughout the organization. These are the very parameters that we train our staff in. And just because we believe that unless you measure it, it won't get done, we have audits to ensure that quality actually gets into the learning teaching process.
CalorX seems to have primarily grown through the franchise model, which obviously involves relinquishing control at some level. How do you maintain an internal corporate culture in this context?
You know, that's a catch-22 because in order to grow, you've got to scale. And in order to scale, you do have to have collaborative partners. But bang on, when you have partners, when you move into multiple cities, states, countries, yes, there is dilution. There's dilution of culture, there's dilution of values that you perceive, there's dilution of processes. And one of the biggest challenges has been to get a hold on that. And like I said, everything that we do is homegrown. We have what we call a CalorX code, which defines our systems and processes to the last grain. It's extremely, extremely elaborative. Not only we have laid down the processes, we ensure that through training, we make the processes alive. So we have a whole division, say HR or media or infrastructure or legal or accounts that actually go into our partnering organizations, which are our franchisees, and handhold, transfer, ensure that practices are being done on the ground, and then audit. So like I said, it's a very simple quality circle. You've got to define it. You've got to ensure that it translates to the ground reality through training. Finally, you've got to measure the outcome, and we do all of the three.
What sort of relationship ought to exist between a franchisee and a franchisor in an academic setting?
Like any other relationship, I think it's important to keep communicating, and we have a cluster-based organization where a number of franchisees, will be brand mentored by a coordinator. So communication is the key. And we exist for the purpose of academics. So we have to ensure that our academic standards go to the last mile. For that, we have what we call a taxonomy. We have a preschool taxonomy. That is our guiding tool. Again, that's an organic tool that we've grown up with. And what we do is we ensure that our business partners, our collaborative partners, first understand that. It is the ethos that drives the organization. It's very important that our business partners not only understand, but they adopt our ethos. So the taxonomy is a starting point. Once they have started to understand the ethos, the leadership, we take it down to the next level, which is the teachers, and then the students, and then the parents. So that's really how we create this ecosystem to ensure that our academic standards are met.
What's the single most critical piece of legislation that you believe has the capacity to revolutionize education in this country?
I have to thank you for asking me that question, because currently the education sector is going through one of its, if I may say, most challenging regulations, which is the fee regulation. Every state has its own regulation, and because there's a lot of involvement of parents, and the government is now looking towards regulating K-12, especially the fee part. And there's been a lot of legislation around this, but the good thing that's coming up now is that the center is now talking about a unified code which every state can do, rather than every state having their own thing. So once that is in place, I think the sector is going to leapfrog to the next level, where we will not have what you currently see, disagreements with parents, disagreement with even legislative bodies. I think we are poised in the industry to go to the next level, where seamlessly legislation, parents and schools will work together for benefit of students.
What are other academic models that we can adopt from our global counterparts? Or is India perhaps a unique case altogether and therefore requires a completely separate solution?
Well, we are very European because of our legacy. So a lot of things that we do is what happens in the UK. But from education, there's a lot to learn from the US as well, because their government or municipal or state-run institutions are the finest. In India, we are unique in that 42% of our school-going children are in private education. This is nowhere in the world, which is why private education gets so much talked about. There's just so many expectations from private education in India, which is not the case anywhere in the world. To that extent, yes, private education or players like this, like us, have a lot of responsibility for society. To answer the other question about business models of education, a lot of it today, until the company sector opens up, it's still non-for-profit. Given that one still works through societies and trusts, and to that extent it's being managed or collaborated or a JV kind of a segment. But the minute companies come up, a world of opportunity is going to open up, because you could have shareholding patterns, you could have just management contracts, which is all happening everywhere in the West, whether you look at it in the Middle East, whether you look at it in the Western countries or the developed countries. So we look forward to that. I mean, it's going to be a great time when that happens.
How difficult is it to recruit and retain staff within the CalorX ecosystem?
That is a great kind of an answer. I mean, I would say that we've been fortunate that if we were to, put a national ad, we do get a lot of CVs. And if the numbers of CVs was anything to go by, we should be celebrating. But the reality is almost 50% of the CVs is not something that we can do anything about. And, because CalorX is like a, we go all the entire vertical of education. We have what we call a cradle to career approach. I know from first-hand experience that hardly anybody in the country, any urban kid, aspires to be a teacher. And unless we have quality people aspiring to be teachers, we can't produce quality teachers. So it's like a vicious circle, and because we don't have good B.Ed students, we don't have good teacher recruits. So that is one of our biggest challenges. And teacher is really the hallmark of quality. That is the one place where you're going to disseminate the quality in the classroom. And without having quality teachers, it's a long haul. It's not going to happen. But technology has supported us in bringing in some semblance of quality to beat this requirement.
Is technology the answer to our education woes?
I believe technology may be the answer to every war in the country and in the world. But having said that, technology in education is something we've got to live with. Of course, technology permeates every aspect of life, but more so education. Technology is something that we harness to reach out to places that students cannot walk or have very less access to education institutions. Technology is something that we reach out to when we don't have a great physics teacher in the classroom. Technology is something we reach out to ensure that there's standardization, that all 30 kids are doing the same thing. Technology is something that we reach out to having multiple intelligence engaged in the classroom, because we believe that the more intelligent methods, I mean touch, feel, kinesthetic, ear, everything that you engage, the child will learn faster and better. So technology is a great boon. Now our kids are going to go into a world of artificial intelligence. Education has got to meet that requirement. We can no longer talk about water cycles. Water cycles have, they can hear it from Google. So we have to teach them skills of the 21st century. We have to teach them adaptability. We have to teach them creativity. We have to teach them emotional intelligence, because that is going to be the differentiator between a robot and a human being. We have to, at schools, bring this differentiation amongst the next generation who's going to really coexist with robots.
Time for a break. On the other side, we will bring you up close and personal with the interior decor market here in India. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight we're putting the spotlight on the interior decor market here in India. I caught up with Cocoon Rugs as well as an interior designer for tips on how the industry is changing and how to stand out for an entrepreneur in this market which is so fragmented. Take a look.
Sure. So obviously at the heart of it, GST is a great idea. The government wants to make it simpler over time for everyone. So obviously by the time all of this filters down to the lowest levels, it will take some time. But yes, I agree. I think that simplification is necessary for spaces like ours. It's a cottage industry. It's not factory production. Not everything is being made under one roof. So moment it's all scattered and it's going out to different sort of centers to be woven, to be finished, and all of that. If there are multiple levels of taxation, it makes everything a lot more expensive. Obviously, you get a lot of credit for it over time, but some of these systems can take some time. So you don't want your capital to be blocked for a long time or have a greater requirement for capital, because I mean at the end of the day, these are SMEs that we are talking about. So I think over time simplification is expected and should come through, but right now it's something that we just have to grin and bear. Right. I mean, thankfully, I think the rug business has been around for such a long time that skilled labor for us over time has not been a challenge. What has become a challenge over time is fewer and fewer younger people want to come back into rug weaving because it's a fairly intensive, labor-intensive field. And a lot of people typically in rural areas are a lot happier going either into IT or construction, which are not as labor heavy, but still give them a good quality of life. So I think that to us is a bigger challenge. But with that said, I do see more and more design schools coming into India with different sort of partnerships. For example, Parsons is already in India. I think there's another school in Delhi that's doing something similar as well. So I think over time, the emphasis towards this will grow. I think there's a lot more demand for this. I'm sure this field will only continue to grow. Right. I think obviously when you're starting out, you need to have a unique, like you said, a unique selling point. So whether it's a unique product or a unique idea, unique packaging, there has to be something unique that you're offering to your customers that's not already in there in the market. For us, when we started 8 years back, we were just talking earlier, there was not a single rug company in India that was really catering to the interior design community. They were catering to the tourists and the foreigners that were coming to visit India and wanted to take handicrafts and things like that back with them. But no one really catering to the design-loving Indian audience. And I think that was a niche that existed at that point. And really that is what we set out to fulfill when we started Cocoon about 9 years back. And so I think it's important that you know where the gap is, what exactly is going to be unique about your product, and then put your heart and soul in it and make sure it succeeds, because there is enough space, enough segmentation in the Indian market currently for design. Right. I think thankfully with social media, internet, news, the access to design and design news is really all around. So even someone sitting in a tier 3, tier 4 city knows what's going on in Milan and Paris. So if someone's doing up their home nicely, tastefully, has a senior designer like you on board, they know exactly what they want for their homes. They know what's available in a Bombay, Delhi, London, New York. They know what prices they're selling at. So I think it's a fairly sophisticated, fairly aware homeowner, even if it's in a tier 3 or a tier 4 city. So I don't see pricing being a challenge. Of course, access is a challenge because if you're in certain cities. But I think that's where the interior designers come into play, because they're now doing home spaces around the country, not just Bombay, Delhi, or Bangalore. All right. I think technology has been a big driver for our business as we've moved forward. For a simple thing, I think 15 years back when we were designing rugs, it was typically our design team sitting with a pen and paper and sort of designing unique designs, and there was only so much that your mind could imagine at that point of time. But now with access to computers and being able to draw designs on computers, it's allowed quick turnaround times. It's allowed to create all kinds of designs, contemporary designs, and so on. So I think that already, so designing what it was 15 years back has evolved to what it is now, thanks to technology playing a huge role as well. Right. Thank you, Sunanda.
Completely out of time on this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow. If you have any feedback for us or you want to be featured here on the show, you can always write in at leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com. Tweet at us at Sunanda_J or LOT_ET Now. You can also leave your questions and feedback on Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now, our Facebook page, or call us with your questions on that number on your screens. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good night.